In this video, we're going to discuss Zakat, the importance of Zakat in the life of a believer, rulings of Zakat understood from the glorious Quran, who should give Zakat, who should receive Zakat, how to calculate your Zakat, what is the meaning of 1 year in your possession, and many other fine rulings pertaining to Zakat. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة واركعوا مع الراكعين صدق الله العظيم. My noble viewers, brothers, sisters and their children, inshallah, in this video we are going to discuss the very important topic of Zakat. The verse that I recited is from Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah number 2, verse number 43. The translation is, and perform as-salah, and give zakah, and bow down, along with ar-raki'een. My noble viewers, the topic of zakat is well spoken in the month of Ramadan by many. Many of the questions that Imams receive in the month of Ramadan are pertaining to Zakat. Being an Imam for a very long time, I came to this understanding that we should release a video in which we address most of the questions that I receive in the month of Ramadan. Indeed, there's a lot of confusion outside in relation to the rules, fine rules pertaining to Zakat. We all know that Zakat is a monetary ibadat. It is a monetary ibadat. You and me in our salah, in the sitting position, we say At-tahiyyatu lillahi was-salawatu wat-tayyibat. In Urdu we say Qawli ibadate, fi'li ibadate, और माली इबादतें अल्लाह ही के लिए है. All reverence, all worship, all sanctity are due to Allah Almighty. The word wat-tayyibat basically means that all our funds, all our wealth is for Allah Almighty. The true representation of wat-tayyibat is the discharging of zakat. So much so that the scholars have said that if a person denies the validity of zakat, the importance of zakat, he does not believe in it, he is no longer a Muslim. The reason being is that the order of zakat has been made mention in the Quran in many places. One place that I have recited in front of you in the start of our talk. So this is a monetary ibadat. Now there are two meanings of zakat that I would like to make mention at this point. Zakat literally means increase. And technically it means purification. As we all know that if a person is sick, if he does not remove the sickness, this person will become weak and it may open other doors of sickness. Likewise, if a person does not discharge the zakat properly, the wealth that should be given to the poor and the needy people, if it remains in the wealth, it will start to soil the entire wealth. The entire wealth will become rotten, just like the sickness in a human being. So that's why it is most important that a person discharge the zakat so the remaining wealth can become pure, can remain in the state of purity. There are many benefits in giving zakat. I'm going to highlight a few that will be encouraging for us to discharge zakat with a satisfied heart. We do not want to discharge the zakat as a burden. It is an order of Allah Almighty, and we should be pleased to fulfill this order. So, one of the greatest benefits of discharging zakat is that it eradicates the natural inclination that a person has towards material. Hubbud dunya, the love of this dunya, infatuation with this dunya, and the belongings of this dunya, is the mother of all sin, the mother of all sicknesses. The giving of zakat addresses that love. It allows that love, that natural inclination that we have towards material, to become weak. And the weaker love that the person has towards dunya, the stronger chance he has to please Allah Almighty. The second benefit is that by giving zakat, you are helping many poor people. And as we know, Nabi Kareem Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Al-Khalqu Iyalullah. The makhluk of Allah Almighty is the family of Allah Almighty. And we have the opportunity that we are on the giving side rather than the side of those that take. We should feel privileged that Allah Almighty made us amongst those that give. And we are bringing a smile on the face of those people that are truly deserving of our charity. There's a very strong statement made by somebody that when we give charity to somebody, we make their dunya. And when they take our charity, they make our akhirah. So by giving, we are getting the better end of the deal, the better side of the deal. We're making their dunya, but they're making our akhirah. So whenever you discharge zakat, it is the order of Allah Almighty, you're pleasing Allah and the Rasul, but at the same time you are eradicating the sickness of hubbud dunya, and you are bringing a smile on the face of those that are in need. But at the same time, we have to understand that if a person does not discharge the zakat, there are severe circumstances that this person will have to face. I'm going to recite one verse from the glorious Quran. This verse gives us guidance in relation to those people that do not give zakat. Now this verse is from Surah Tawbah, Surah number 9, and it is verse number 34, in which Allah Almighty says, وَالَّذِينَ يَكْنِزُونَ الذَّهَبَ وَالْفِضَّةَ وَلَا يُنْفِقُونَهَا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ فَبَشِّرْهُمْ بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ. Translation: and those who hoard up gold and silver, they don't release it, and spend them not in the way of Allah by giving zakat, announce unto them a painful torment. Now what is that torment? Allah speaks about that in the next verse, verse number 35. يَوْمَ يُحْمَى عَلَيْهَا فِي نَارِ جَهَنَّمَ فَتُقْوَى بِهَا جِبَاهُهُمْ وَجُنُوبُهُمْ وَظُهُورُهُمْ. On the day when the money, the gold and the silver, will be heated in the fire of hell, and with it will be branded their foreheads, their flanks, and their backs. This is going to be the punishment of not giving zakat. Nabi Kareem Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has made mention of a great punishment for those people that do not give zakat. And this hadith has been recorded by Imam Bukhari in Sahih al-Bukhari, in which Nabi Kareem Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, a person whom Allah has bestowed with wealth, and he does not give zakat. Allah has made him wealthy, he's prosperous, but he does not give zakat. On the day of Qiyamah, his wealth will be turned into a venomous, bold serpent, which will wind around his neck and bite his jaw and say, Ana maluka, ana kanzuka. I am your wealth, I am your treasure. So my dear viewers, brothers and sisters and their children, if Allah has made us prosperous, we should not hesitate in giving zakat to the poor and the needy people. By doing that, we will protect ourselves from the harms of not giving, and we will benefit from the perks of giving. So the first topic that we're going to discuss under zakat is on whom is zakat farz. Number one, he has to be or she has to be a Muslim. So zakat is not compulsory upon a non-Muslim. Number two, the male or female has to be an adult. The Islamic definition of an adult is that if it is a boy and he has a wet dream before turning 15, he will be considered as an adult. May it be at the age of 10, 11, 12, 13. But if the boy does not experience a wet dream and he turns 15, by default, this boy is considered to be an adult. If a girl experiences her cycle before 15, she will be considered to be an adult. May it be at the age of 11, 12, 13, 14. But if the girl does not experience her cycle and she turns 15, by default, she will be considered as an adult. Number three, the person is a Muslim. Number two, adult. Number three, has to be sane. If the person is insane, zakat is not applicable. Number four, the person has to be rich. We will speak about what constitutes richness later on. Now we're going to discuss people who cannot take zakat. Number one, zakat cannot be given to Banu Hashim. They are the family of Nabi Kareem Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They are known as the Sayyids. So a Sayyid cannot receive zakat. Number two, the Asul and Furu', yani the ascendants and the descendants cannot receive zakat. Asul is you cannot give zakat to your father and you cannot give zakat to your grandfather. Likewise, furu', your descendants, you cannot give zakat to your child and you cannot give zakat to your grandchild. And a husband cannot give zakat to his wife and a wife cannot give zakat to the husband. Other than that, you can give zakat to the person if he is poor. May it be your brother, your sister, your auntie, your uncle, from the maternal side or the paternal side. You can give zakat. Many a times, people ask me, do we have to express to the recipient that we are giving zakat? No, you do not have to express. You just have to make the niyyat in your heart and give the fund to your brother, sister, or to the poor person, and that will suffice. Nisab and rate of zakat. Now we're going to discuss what constitutes a person being wealthy and what constitutes a person being poor. So first of all, I want to make mention of the nisab, the threshold. So the Muslim fuqaha, the Muslim jurists have made mention that if a person only has gold, he does not have money, he does not have silver, he does not have any goods, he only has gold, then the nisab, the threshold for this person, will be 87.48 grams of gold or 7.5 tolas of gold. Let me make that very clear. So if a person only has gold, he does not have silver, he does not have money, hard cash, he does not have any raw material, he does not have any merchandise, then he will only give zakat if his gold is 87.48 grams, and he will give 2.5% off that. But if a person has money with gold, or he has raw material with gold, or he has merchandise with gold, then the nisab will drop to the nisab of silver. And the threshold of silver is 612 grams of silver. So if a person has 612 grams of silver, he will be considered as rich and he will pay zakat. Basically, if we were to calculate the value of 612 grams of silver, it will be $500 more or less. So I'm going to give a scenario so this becomes clear to my viewers. A person has only gold, nothing else, then his gold has to exceed 87 grams of gold for him to be considered as rich and to pay 2.5% on the gold. But if he has gold and any other following item, number 1, hard cash, number 2, silver, number 3, goods, then the nisab will be the nisab of silver, and that will be $500, more or less, 612 grams of silver. So if he has 612 grams of silver, or the value of it, he will put all the wealth together, these silver, the gold, the hard cash, the raw material, the merchandise, the goods, and then whatever the value is, he will pay 2.5%. Types of wealth on which zakat is compulsory. So number 1, zakat is compulsory on hard cash, on money. Number 2, zakat is compulsory on gold and silver. May it be in the form of a bullion, or may it be in the form of jewelry. May it be that the jewelry is being used or the jewelry is in the lockup. Zakat will be given. So zakat on money, zakat on gold and silver, even if it is not being used, you still have to pay zakat upon it. If it is being used, you still have to pay zakat upon it. Zakat is compulsory on merchandise and livestock and income that a person receives from properties, and on income derived from rental businesses and stocks and shares. Types of wealth on which zakat is not compulsory. There is no zakat on personal belongings for personal use. For example, if a person has many cars, for his personal use, there will be no zakat. If a person has many houses, for his personal use, there will be no zakat. So other than gold and silver, any metal you possess for your personal satisfaction, for your personal need, there will be no zakat upon it. So for example, if a person has diamonds for personal use, there will be no zakat upon it. Indeed, if the person has the diamonds to sell, then zakat will be considered. Zakat will be given, but if it is for personal use, there will be no zakat. The 1-year rule. When we study the topic of zakat, we come across the 1-year rule, which people have misunderstood. So the 1-year rule is that a person needs to possess the item, the article for 1 year. So people think that if they possess that item for 2 or 3 days, they will not have to pay zakat upon it. So I want to shed light upon this 1 year rule. So how do we determine our year, the month, the date on which we are going to calculate our zakat? Right now, if we were to study the Hijri year, it is 1441. I have gold, I have silver, I have money. So the Nisab for me will be 612 grams of silver. Let's say on the 1st of Ramadan, 1441 was the first time in my life after reaching the age of puberty that I possessed 612 grams of silver or the value of it. So I will note that day down, that today is the 1st of Ramadan, 1441. Next year, 1442, on the 1st of Ramadan, if I have $500, yani 612 grams of silver, or more than that, that means I started prosperous and I ended the year in prosperity. So whatever I have on that day, I will calculate and I will give zakat. Now, if a person starts his year on the 1st of Ramadan 1441 and next year 1442 on the 1st of Ramadan he has less than 612 grams of silver on that day, he will be considered as destitute and he has not fulfilled the condition of 1 year, so he will not be given any zakat. At the same token, if a person had millions through the year, but he spent it, and by the end of the year, he had $500 only, he will only pay zakat on 500, even if he had millions during the year. At the same token, if a person was to calculate his zakat on the 1st of Ramadan 1442, and 2 days prior to the month of Ramadan, on the 27th of Sha'ban, he receives a healthy amount of $1 million. Indeed, it has only been in his possession for 3 days. But on the 1st of Ramadan, if it is in his possession, he will calculate that $1 million as his asset and he will pay zakat upon it. In addition to this, the date for calculation for this particular person who possessed 612 grams of silver the first time in his life on the 1st of Ramadan, he will calculate each year on the 1st of Ramadan. And whatever he possesses on that day, he will pay zakat. What he receives after that, if he holds on to it the following year on the 1st of Ramadan, he will pay zakat. If not, there will be no zakat. If a person does not know of the month, the date on which he possessed 612 grams of silver, and he wants to determine one date in the lunar calendar, let's say he wants to calculate his zakat each year from today onwards, on the 10th of Ramadan, then he should stick to that one date. He should not move to the 9th of Ramadan and he should not move to the 11th. That one date of the lunar calendar should be his fixed date for his entire life. Reason being is that sometimes if we say we are going to pay zakat in the first week of Ramadan or the second week of Ramadan, now because it's not a decided one date, the shaitan may play with the mind of the person. He knows that after 3 days he's going to receive a very healthy amount. What he may do is he may pay zakat before that, in the start of the week, to dodge giving zakat of that healthy amount. So it is most important to save our iman and not to be entrapped by the whispering of the shaitan that we fix one date in 1 month, and that will be our date and month in which we calculate our zakat for the rest of our life. Now we will discuss how to calculate our zakat. So if a person was to calculate his zakat, he will include all his wealth. And when I use the word wealth, I am alluding to hard cash, alluding to gold and silver, alluding to raw material, merchandise, or any article that has been bought with the intention to sell. So you'll put them all together and see what the value of that is. Let's say the value of all put together is $50,000. So now he knows that on the 1st of Ramadan, he has $50,000. So now he will calculate and study that, does he have any loan upon himself? Does he have to repay somebody? Does he have a qarz upon himself? If he does have a qarz, and let's say the qarz is $10,000, he will subtract 10,000 from 50,000. He will be left with 40,000, and he will pay zakat on $40,000. And that is $1,000, because zakat is 2.5% on $40,000. The zakat is $1,000. Rulings pertaining to the debt. Are all debts to be subtracted from the assets? So there's some fine details that we need to understand. Number one, if a person has taken a loan from somebody, and with that loan he has bought groceries, or he has paid the bills, or he has used the credit card to pay the bills and groceries, and let's say he is in debt to the credit card or in debt to a individual of $5,000. On the day he calculates his zakat and he has $50,000 worth of assets, he will deduct the $5,000 from the 50,000, and he will pay zakat on 45,000. But the second kind of loan is the loan that a person takes for business, for investment. Now there's some fine detail pertaining to that as well. So if a person has taken out a loan from an Islamic institution to secure a property or to secure a home. For example, the price of the home, the house, is $500,000. He has placed a healthy deposit of $200,000 and taken a loan of $300,000. So he is in debt of $300,000. So on the day, on the 1st of Ramadan, he calculates his assets, his gold, silver, hard cash, merchandise, raw material, and he comes to know that he has $50,000. Now he will study what kind of loans are upon him, and he comes to know that he is in debt to the Islamic institution. And the debt is $300,000. If this kind of loan was to be subtracted from the assets that he possesses on the 1st of Ramadan, then many Muslims throughout the world will not pay zakat. So the scholars have said that this kind of loan will not be subtracted from the assets. And the reason behind it is that indeed it is a loan upon him, of $300,000, but at the same time, he has a property that is worth $500,000. So the value of the property will offset the loan. So this kind of loan will not be subtracted from the assets. The same rule applies to a car. If a person has bought a car on finance, indeed he is in debt to the finance company, but he has an asset, and that is the car. So this kind of loan will not be subtracted from the assets that he possesses on the day he makes calculation. Loans. If one person has given somebody a loan, let's say $5,000 was given to a person as a loan. The 1st of Ramadan comes, I need to calculate my zakat. Will I include the $5,000 in my assets? So I have $45,000 sitting in my account. I have given a person $5,000. Do I pay on $50,000 or do I pay on $45,000? So the scholars have said that if a person does not pay zakat on the $5,000 that year because the debtor has not returned the loan, it is fine, but it is better to pay. Reason being is that if I did not pay zakat on the loan that I gave to a person for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and the 4th year that person out of the blue came and said, Imam Uzair, I am returning the loan of $5,000, then I will have to pay zakat for the 4 years that I have missed. And that will be difficult to do. That's why the scholars say that each year pay zakat upon the loan that you have given that you have not received yet. Because if you don't pay it now, later on you will have to pay lump sum. But there's another scenario. If one person believes that the debtor is not going to return the loan, then he does not have to pay zakat. He knows that he's not going to receive it from that person. But the same rule will apply that if this person does return the loan, then for each year that was missed, he will have to calculate and give zakat upon that $5,000. A few rulings pertaining to business. If a person has a business, let's say he has a warehouse that he has given to somebody on rent. Or let's say a person has an investment property that he has given on rent. So there will be no zakat upon the value of the warehouse, and there will be no zakat on the value of the investment property. But zakat will be given upon the money that he receives as rent from the warehouse or the investment property, as long as the rent money is in his possession on the 1st of Ramadan. Meaning, if I have collected $20,000 from the investment property, $50,000 from the warehouse, in total I have $70,000 that I have collected. But on the 1st of Ramadan, that is my date to calculate, I have nothing to show. I have spent that money during the year, I will not pay zakat. So whatever I receive from a rental business, from an investment property, from a warehouse, so on and so forth, I will pay zakat upon the money that I receive. I will not pay zakat on the value of the property. but only pay zakat if I possess that wealth on the day I calculate my zakat. If a person has a business in which there is raw material and there is a finished product as well, and in that business there is machines, there are trucks, there are cars, there are shelves, how do we calculate our zakat? So the scholars have said zakat is not compulsory on fixtures and fittings of a shop, on a motor car, on a truck, or any delivery vehicle which is used in the running of a business. But if there is raw material or a finished product, zakat will be given upon the value of it. Now the question that we need to address is, how do we calculate the value of the merchandise? So one is a retail price, one is a wholesale price. Mufti Taqi Usmani Sahab Damat Barakatuhum, he makes mention that you can calculate the value of the merchandise as if you are selling everything together, like a stock sale. For example, if a person has many clothes that he is to sell, if he was to sell individually, the price will be high. For example, one shirt may go for $100. If he was to sell wholesale price, the price will drop from $100 to maybe $80. But if he was to announce that I'm selling the whole bundle of clothes in one go, then most probably it will drop to $70. So the word I'm using is stock sale or stock clearance. So if a person has a business in which there is merchandise, then he will give zakat upon the value that he may receive if he was to sell all that at stock price, stock clearance price. A person needs to pay zakat upon shares, upon stocks. Now there's a fine ruling pertaining to shares. The Muslim jurists have said that if a person has bought shares to sell, a person has bought shares to sell, on the day he calculates his zakat, whatever the value of the share is in the market at that time, he will add that number into his assets and he will pay zakat of 2.5%. If a person has bought the shares with the intention to receive dividends, let's say the person has 1,000 shares of a company and he has bought with the intention to receive dividends, how will he calculate zakat? Or how will he pay zakat upon the 1,000 shares? So the contemporary Muslim jurists have made mention, he will study the company in which he has invested. Let's say the company has 50% merchandise and raw material, and 50% of the company is their equipment and fixtures. Now this person has 1,000 shares, and each share is $1. But he has not bought to sell, he has bought to enjoy the dividends. So now he will only pay half of the value of the share. Half of the value of the share. Because 50% is fixtures and equipment, there's no zakat upon it. But 50% is raw material and merchandise. So he will pay 2.5% on 50% of the share that he has. If a person has bought an investment property, how will he calculate zakat on an investment property? If it is for rent, he will pay upon the rent. But if it is not for rent, he has bought the land to sell. that whatever the value of the land is on the day he calculates his zakat, he will pay zakat upon that amount. There's another fine ruling that I would like to share, and this is very relevant to most of us. If a person buys a house or a property, a land, with the intention to sell, so at the time he buys, he has the intention to sell. Indeed, on the day he calculates his zakat, he will pay the zakat based upon the current value of the house and the current value of the land. But if a person does not have a sound intention, the intention is that I'm buying this land or I'm buying this house, maybe I will live in there, or maybe I will build a house upon it, or maybe if the market turns good, I will sell it. So there's no concrete intention. The ruling is there is no zakat. There is no zakat. If he sells it later on, then he will pay zakat upon the money that he receives, as long as he holds on to it on the day he calculates his zakat. If a person has bought a piece of land with the intention to sell, but the price of the land is $200,000 and he has only invested $100,000 and he's $100,000 in debt. At this point, as he has invested $100,000 in that piece of land, so he will pay zakat on what he has invested in the piece of land. Do we pay zakat upon superannuation? You do not pay zakat upon your super. One of the conditions is that you need to be in control of that wealth. And as we know that when we invest our super, once it is in our super account, we have no control over it. So there will be no zakat on super funds. Right now in COVID-19, people are allowed to take $10,000. If a person allows $10,000 to exit from his super fund, because it has come in his control now and he is using it, if he holds on to that money on the day where he calculates his zakat, he will pay zakat on the $10,000. But if that same $10,000 was sitting in the super account, there will be no zakat upon it. There's another very important topic that we need to discuss in this video, and that is, can the husband pay zakat on behalf of the wife? Can the father pay zakat on behalf of his adult male and female children? So the ruling pertaining to this is that if the wife has jewelry but she does not have hard cash to pay zakat upon the jewelry, she can request the husband to pay zakat on behalf of her. If he accepts and pays on behalf of her, her zakat will be discharged. But if she requests and the husband does not accept, then the lady will have to sell some portion of her jewelry so she can receive hard cash and pay zakat. If the father is asked by the children, adult children, to pay zakat on behalf of them, and then he does, that will be accepted. But without their knowing if he pays zakat on behalf of them, then zakat will not be accepted. Do we give zakat only in money? This is another very common question, that when we discharge 2.5% of our wealth in zakat, does that zakat have to be in money? So first of all, it does not have to be in money. If you give money to the poor person, that is fine. If you buy food with that money and give that food to the poor person, that is fine. If you buy a blanket and give that blanket to the poor person, that is fine. So in essence, as long as the money or the product that you have bought with the money is given to the person and he becomes the owner. You can't invest the zakat in something that is public, because no one has ownership to something that is public. For example, if a person with zakat money builds a well, now that well is a public property. It does not belong to anyone. This kind of discharging of zakat will not be accepted. So tamleek, ownership, is very, very important. Many a times, people say that this lady is a widow. Are we allowed to give zakat to a widow? Keep in mind, you can only give a zakat to a poor person. And a poor person, male or female, adult, is that person that has less than 612 grams of silver. May it be that poor person is a widow. May it be that poor person is a married person. May it be that poor person is your brother or sister. So the criteria is poverty, not the label that may indicate that the person is poor. In the month of Ramadan, many people ask that, are we allowed to delay the giving of zakat? So for example, one person, his fixed date of calculating zakat is the 1st of Rajab. As we know, after Rajab comes Sha'ban, and after Sha'ban comes Ramadan. We all know that in Ramadan, the reward of actions is manifold. So is it okay for a person to delay the discharging of the zakat from the month of Rajab and Sha'ban to the month of Ramadan? So the ruling on this is that if somebody comes to us in the month of Rajab and Sha'ban before the month of Ramadan and he is in need, but we don't give to him with the intention that I am going to spend my zakat in the month of Ramadan so I can get more reward, this is not acceptable. But if no one approaches us, then we can postpone it to the month of Ramadan. And there's a second practical method. We can divide our zakat amount and give little by little. So by the time we reach the month of Ramadan, we do have some funds and we can discharge them in the month of Ramadan. I hope this video will give my dear viewers some kind of guidance. Indeed, there will be many aspects that we have not discussed. The topic of zakat is a very lengthy topic. Those brothers and sisters that are viewing this video, calculate your zakat properly and discharge it properly. Alhamdulillah, for many years, myself and my team, we have collected zakat for the poor and the needy people. Most of our zakat is distributed in Australia. So if you want to discharge your zakat and you do not have a recipient, please donate towards the accounts that you will see on the screen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.